Chapter 27. We'll do it live.
Chapter 27. We'll do it live.
I did not sleep the night Jessica had left Rocky Ridge. The weight of what I was about to do settled on my shoulders the moment she walked out the door. I had spent lifetimes building empires, nations, and systems, always ending up at the center of the webs I wove. This time, in this life, I had tried to stay on the edges, to live as normal a life as possible, to simply show people a better way through live streams and the gardens, and hope that they would simply walk the path themselves. The community I had built through those live streams had grown beyond anything I could have scripted, and now Arasaka was trying to monetize the lifestyle I had intended to be free. So, I decided to turn their own plans back on them. Rocky Ridge became a hub of engineering activity. We stopped work on cars and bots, and started focusing on the newly altered Arasaka designs. We simplified them, removed all of the monitoring code, removed the encoded paywall structures, redesigned parts to last, and built concept after concept. A month went by before we had satisfactory working models. During that time, my Blackwall shard began contacting local repair shops and parts vendors in Night City, pretending to be and negotiating deals on my behalf to get them on board with the project. She also handled the majority of the charity organization that would handle paying for parts or replacement machines. I made appearances to physically sign things when necessary. The work went round the clock. Nomads took things in shifts, ensuring that we packed nearly a year's worth of research and development into 2 months, and had working finalized designs not long after. It had been a frenzy of activity and demanded more of our attention than I would like to admit. Other nomad clans helped us pick the slack in our border duties, understanding only that we were busy doing something that would stick it to Arasaka. It didn't matter what we were doing, if the nomads knew the end result would cost a corporation billions of credits. They were in, they didn't need details. The decision to go live from Santo Domingo itself, rather than from Rocky Ridge, or a studio, came after. I decided that I wanted the people who had already been doing the work and living the lifestyle to be standing on the same dirt they had been working in when they heard the news that the tools they desperately wanted were finally theirs without any layers of permission, payment, or contracted subscriptions. We had set up a simple stage at the largest garden entrance, string lights hung to add a bit of a festive atmosphere, and a single podium with a large screen behind it. Merun would run the technical side, beaming the signal through a dozen redundant routes. Alan's netrunners would keep the feed alive, even if outside interests decided to test their capabilities the hard way and shut it down. I ensured there was no visible security on the ground. The only rule was that no violence would not be tolerated inside the garden perimeter. It was 2 weeks before Arasaka's announcement, late afternoon. The crowd had begun to gather. Word had moved through the district faster than any official announcement. Could have managed that I was going to reveal something that would change the homesteading efforts in the gardens and at home forever. People arrived with folding chairs and blankets, with coolers and small children who ran between the plots until their parents called them back. Nomads who had heard through the clan channels pulled in with dust-covered vehicles and set up small camps on the edge of the garden. A few sharp-dressed observers, likely representatives from different corporations, lingered near the outer fence, recording everything with discreet optics. I recognized those types from a distance. They were professional watchers, probably already drafting the first pieces of whatever I said to frame their own agendas. I decided to let them watch. By the time they could report back to their corpo bosses, the files for the machines and repair processes would already be live and spreading across the net. I stood behind the small curtain wall we had rigged at the side of the stage and watched the light change over the gardens. Merun waited beside me in service mode colors, so he would blend in with other support staff. "You're about to make a lot of corporations very angry," he said. Again, I crossed my arms and smirked up at him. They were already angry when the moment the gardens started working without their involvement. This just gives them something concrete to react to on my terms instead of theirs. Merun shook his head in amusement. "They will try to spin it. They say you're just grandstanding or protecting your own brand. They can call it whatever they want," I said confidently. "They can't stop it. The support structure is already in place, and the schematics are already online waiting to go live. You can't unpublish something that is already mirrored across 1,000 nodes and still spreading because ordinary people decided it was worth keeping alive. War. Fox gave me a thumbs up from the far side of the stage where he was checking the last of the audio lines. Rihanna had already disappeared into the crowd, moving among the people and listening to the conversations to get a better read on the mood. I took one last slow breath, then stepped out into the lights and walked to the podium. The stream went live, and the 30-second intro played on the large screen behind me and on monitors across the world. The crowd quieted faster than I had expected. Thousands of faces turned toward the stage. Some smiled, some looked wary, some anticipatory. The screen shifted to the Erodum logo and the words, Homestead Project Open Source. No subscriptions. Free support in simple lettering that had been chosen because it looked nothing like corporate marketing. Good evening, I said with a bright, excited smile. The speakers carried the words across the gardens without distortion. I know many of you have been following my streams and working out here with us. I know the hours you have out into these plots and the repairs you have learned to do with your own hands. What we have built together here matters more than people who haven't worked this land can possibly know. I paused, scanning the faces in the crowd, but I have been thinking for a while now that we can take the next step. I think we can make what we're doing here, in the gardens, something anyone can do in their homes or their apartments. And I think that next step needs to be handled in a way that keeps control of what we're doing exactly where it belongs. In the hands of the people who are actually doing the work. The sentence was allowed to hand for a moment. The only sounds were the distant traffic on the overpass and the low murmur of people shifting in their seats. I have spent a lot of time thinking about what real independence looks like once you move past just growing a few vegetables or fixing one broken pump. I continued, my tone shifting to something more contemplative. And to me, it looks like having the actual designs in your hands, without anyone deciding later that you need permission or a recurring payment to keep using them. It looks like being able to repair or replace what you built without having to beg a company to authorize the parts, or crossing your fingers that they haven't simply redesigned the machine, so that they no longer manufacture those parts, which forces you to buy their newer, more expensive model. Enter C. Dental. I shook my head. It looks like knowing that if you improve something, you can share that improvement. And it actually stays shared instead of disappearing behind someone else's update. That is the direction I want to push this. I took a deep breath, smiled wide, and raised my voice. That is why I am launching the Erodum Homestead Project. A ripple moved through the crowd. Some nodded. Some looked curious. Others leaned forward in interest. The observers at the fence adjusted their stances slightly. This is not a product line, I clarified. It is not a subscription service. It is a charity built around a brand of technology that belongs to the people who use it. Starting in the next few minutes, every schematic, every design file, every repair manual, and every assembly guide for the core homestead systems we have designed and tested over the past several months in secret will be released into the public domain. You can download them immediately. You can build them with whatever materials you can find or afford. You can change them, improve them, and share your own versions. There are no patents attached, no royalties required. There is no kill switch or hidden codes to monitor what you do with the equipment. The screen behind me switched to the live archive interface, showing off the different pieces of equipment, as well as the download counter, which was climbing in real time. Within the first minute, most of the designs had already passed 10,000 downloads. By the time I finished the next sentence, it had doubled. Now, I understand that not everyone is skilled enough to build their own systems from scratch, or even build them with the parts if they're provided. I said with understanding. So, you do not want to build the systems yourself, or you don't believe yourself capable of doing so. The Erodum Homestead Charity exists to remove that barrier as well. You can order the systems pre-built directly from the charity's website. Rocky Ridge is now the primary hub for free repairs and replacements. We will be opening 3 additional locations in Santo Domingo over the next month. Additionally, the charity has entered into contracts with local technicians and engineers so that you can bring any broken unit in and our teams will repair it or replace it at no cost. The charity covers the cost of parts and labor, as well as the cost of new units. If that's what's needed. I grabbed the podium with both hands. Now, I understand paranoia. and some of you are wondering what I get out of it. And the answer is nothing. Apart from knowing you all are able to live more independent lives. These systems do not require accounts. They do not collect personal data. They do not send information about what your machine to do to anyone. And when you bring the system in for a repair, the only questions that are asked will be about what's going on with the machine, so the technicians can repair it. Cheers were starting to pop up through the crowd, with some people actively clapping excitedly. I am personally funding the initial stock, the first year of operations, and the opening of the satellite hubs from resources I already have available through my brain dances and other Orotum works and designs. I moved on, pressing the fact that no corpo influence had anything to do with the project. After that charity will accept donations from anyone who can give without expecting control in return. We will seek grants from any source whose money does not come with conditions that limit who can be helped or require data from the system. And we will ask those who benefit to support the work when they are able. Not because we will send a bill, but because that is how communities keep something like this alive without creating new masters. If this project succeeds, it will succeed because the people who use it choose to keep it running. A man near the front raised his voice. What stops someone from copying the designs and trying to lock them down later anyway? I gave him a nod. Nothing stops anyone from trying. What changes is that our versions remain open. Every improvement the community makes gets backed into the main line, creating an ever-improving free line of tech that no patented brand can keep up with. There is no single owner who can decide tomorrow that the files are no longer free. The repositories are decentralized. The mirrors already exist in places that are difficult to reach all at once. If one node comes under pressure, the others continue and new ones pop up. If pressure is brought to the people who run the repair hubs, we will move the hubs or protect them physically and legally. Wotan. I looked out over the crowd. The difference between the Orotum Homestead brand and others isn't that we're stronger. It's that we have nothing to lose by keeping our designs open, and everything to gain by refusing to create gates that people have to pay to pass through. I was saying. Another voice called out from farther back. How do we know this isn't just another brand that will turn into the same thing in 5 years? I leaned on the podium and answered without hesitation. You don't. Not yet, anyway. You only know what I'm telling you tonight and what the files themselves show. But you can also take my word for it. My every action has been to improve the lives of the citizens of Night City, and anyone else in the world who watches my live streams. The code has no backdoors. The firmware has no remote shutdown. The designs are deliberately simple, so that a skilled person with basic tools can maintain them. All I want is for you all to live more independently, and that is the goal of this charity. The answer seemed to satisfy enough of the crowd that questions shifted toward practical matters. How to access the files when the first workshops would begin. Whether the charity would help source difficult parts for people who wanted to build their own units from scratch. I answered each one directly. Merun updated the screen behind me in real time with workshop schedules and a map of the first repair locations. The download counter kept climbing. When the questions slowed, I was ready to make my final announcement. Now, before we end this, I have one final thing to tell you all. In a few moments, several trucks will be arriving with 200 pre-built versions of all of the current machines in the charity's brand. They are free for anyone to come and take, one of each to each family. They'll be here till the trucks are emptied, so now's your chance to get in on the ground floor and set yourself up for success. You all have a great night. People were up and cheering. The crowd was looking around and funneling toward the exits as the trucks pulled up into the parking lot. Lines formed at each truck, with eager people ready to get one of the machines for themselves. Some of the crowd moved into small groups to discuss the announcement, while others began to walk the gardens again as if seeing the plots with new eyes now that the tools to expand them were being given to them. I gave a wave then, slipped back behind the curtain where Merun was waiting for me. He handed me a bottle of water. I've been tracking the reaction feeds. They're already spinning the announcement. Some are calling it the biggest decentralization move in years. Others are calling it a naive publicity stunt. The stock tickers for several major tech and infrastructure companies that Arasaka had contracted with for their line of products dipped within the first 20 minutes. Let them spin, I said with a shrug. The files are already out there. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Nalans. Signal pinged me. I plucked up a communicator and slipped it over my ear. What's up? Ha. My people are having entirely too much fun at turning back the probes. Someone tried to flood the main repository with garbage traffic a minute after the initial announcement. We reflected it back with a few modifications of our own. Nothing permanent. But they will think twice before trying again tonight. Community ideas are already appearing on the website's discussion boards, Maroon said. Some are theorizing using lower-grade materials, or are positing modifications to the designs already. Others are suggesting adapting the nutrient systems for specific local water conditions. The rate of initial contributions is higher than expected. That's great. I smiled. Have Blackwall run the suggestions through simulations and develop augmented designs. Try to keep the design updates on a weekly basis, Maroon nodded. And I looked back out at the gardens again. The string lights were on, and the last of the vendors who had come out were still serving food. The lines to get units we had brought along were still lively. There was excitement in the air, the likes of which were associated with festivals. Fox crossed the stage and placed his hands on his hips. Well, it's done, Red. But I hope you realize this is going to make the whole Orotum brand a target now, right? The brain dances made you famous. But this makes the entire structure something people will actively try to undermine or co-opt, because it threatens the existing model. Ah, I shrugged. I've been a target since I refused to play the existing games. The only difference is that this time I am not building something they can eventually buy or destroy from the inside. I'm giving the pieces away and telling the people to keep them and improve them themselves. Good luck to anyone who wants to try and dismantle that. Yawen.